Hello and welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. Andrew Painter threw baseballs this weekend. I'm still very butthurt about the LCS series happening and so much more to get into today here on the Phillies podcast right now. Hello and happy Monday out there. Chris Slemmer back to his off-season form, being the first to join us in the chat. Happy Monday to all out there. Hopefully everybody's not carrying a weird Eagles win into your Monday and letting it affect your week. The Eagles did win. The Phillies aren't playing baseball. We've got a lot to talk about today, including Rob Thompson and Dave Dombrowski are going to meet with the media tomorrow. Good morning, K-Red. Welcome in. But most importantly, Tyler Zulli, Renee, Washington here with you. Most importantly, Tyler, I did not think seeing a baseball highlight over the weekend would give me any sort of, feeling alive again. But I saw Andrew Painter throw a baseball very hard, 98 miles an hour, and then hit 100 on his third pitch of the game. And I felt a little bit of life again. I wasn't expecting to feel a baseball pulse again, but Andrew Painter gave me that pulse. It was good to see, if nothing else. Still real down about this team. But Tyler, seeing Andrew Painter throw a baseball was a little blip on my my heartbeat there.
Well, yeah, understandably so. I totally understand that you're still a little bit disgruntled. It's only been 4 or 5 days, right? And especially considering the fact that you look around the landscape of baseball, the Dodgers advanced, the Guardians advanced,
3 of the 4.
The Yankees advanced. I know we'll talk more about it, but yeah, you have a right to be, upset the way that your baseball team finished. Having Andrew Painter, like real life Andrew Painter highlights, is going to excite a lot of people, and it should, because the kid is, if he's as good as advertised, is a top end of the rotation type of starter, right? The type of guy who could probably throw some major league innings next year, probably towards the back half of next year. And then you're thinking about 2026, where he might be an opening day guy.
Yeah, it's really not that far away. Dave Dombrowski.
And by the way, I don't mean opening day as the opening day starter. I mean the opening day roster.
Yeah.
Right.
Dave Dombrowski has made comments that he expects him to contribute to the club in some way in 2025, and it's all about getting through the rehab process now.
I think the process is pretty straightforward. I think that we use this example a lot, but I think the David Price example probably comes into play, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
The Tigers just did it.
Postseason bullpen help.
The Tigers just did it this year with Jackson Jobe. Jackson Jobe got called up late in the year. They put him on the postseason roster. He made postseason appearances out of the bullpen. They got his feet wet a little bit in Major League Baseball, and next year he's going to be ramped up and ready to go to be a starter for them next year. I think that's a similar timeline could be true for Andrew Painter.
Yeah, and he's out in the Arizona Fall League playing on the Rough Riders, I believe is the name of the squad. But here's what he had to say after the game, Renee. He said, "Obviously, I thought the results weren't exactly what I wanted, but my arm's healthy, and that was the biggest takeaway," Painter told reporters. "Everything felt like it was coming out good, like my old self again." And we'll get into the details of he actually saw some major league quality hitting. But just hearing that quote and hearing him mentally feel as though he's healthy is definitely the biggest thing, because Andrew Painter, protect this man at all costs. He is the future of the Phillies pitching.
He is, and honestly, I was excited. First of all, we got some positive news out of the weekend. Something good came out of the weekend for the Phillies.
A blip of life.
A little small dose of positivity, but I also did enjoy the fact that he left the mound healthy, feeling good, and he's so young still. We forget that.
Just turned
21 years old, and for him to have had these 2 years of really trying to get back, to see you finally take the mound. We've been following all season him like slowly increasing his work, how many pitches he's throwing, and now to be able to see somebody else an opponent. And as you mentioned, it's guys like Jeff McNeil of the Mets. It's guys like a top prospect also
Bryce
that he had a chance to
Eldridge.
see. Bryce Eldridge, exactly. Josue Briseño. So he's seeing some quality batters and did really well in the 29 pitches that he threw.
Yeah, he did take the mound as a member of the Rough Riders with the Phillies across his chest. And Tyler, let's give a little people a sample of Andrew Painter on the mound. But he did face some quality hitters in his outing, and he touched 100 miles an hour on the gun, which
that in itself
when Dave Dombrowski spoke at the winter meetings last year in Nashville, he kind of said, like, I'd be surprised if he threw before the end of next year. And now he's in the Arizona Fall League throwing absolute gas. Here's Andrew Painter, courtesy of, I don't have it in front of me anymore, Tyler, because I've got 6 screens open. What's the name of the journalist? I want to make sure we give proper credit there. I'll find it again.
Yeah, you give me 1 second, because mine is unfortunately on my screen.
Aram
I
Leighton.
was going to say.
Was the reporter. There we go. I found it in my notes.
Battle
again.
so you can get it first.
Yeah, but here is Andrew Painter, live action on the mound, throwing gas. It's just nice to see. And Painter came into the game. He threw his first pitch 98 miles an hour. His third pitch ramped up to 100 miles an hour. And he got Jeff McNeil, who's rehabbing for the Mets, to pop out, and Giants' top-ranked prospect Bryce Eldridge to strike out. All in all, the 32nd prospect in all of baseball threw 29 pitches, 18 of them for strikes, allowed 2 runs and 3 hits and 1 walk with a pair of strikeouts. He is expected to throw 20 innings over the coming weeks, and that's pretty much it. He's capped out. But to your point about like missing baseball, he did give credit in this piece to the Phillies, training staff and a mental coach.
Yeah,
trying to stay sharp and competitive, and it's a lot of downtime. So that has to feel really good for the kid to get out there.
Yeah. Dr. Tracy Statler, the Phillies mental performance scouting and rehab coordinator, was one that he gave a lot of credit to because it's a lot to have to work through. You go from, and he still is a highly ranked prospect, obviously top prospect for the Phillies, still a lot of expectation for him, but it's such a mental hurdle, not only to be injured, but also to miss so much time and have to work back. And for him to have a chance, as you mentioned, in those 29 pitches and the 2 runs that he allowed on the 3 hits and 1 walk, he actually also battled through, that second inning for him. I mean, it's the Arizona Fall League, so this is what we have to look at right now in terms of excitement. But for the AFL, as they affectionately try to call it sometimes, he did battle a little bit. But for him to hit 100 a few times after that 98-mile-per-hour opening pitch, you like what you saw from him. Something positive about the future for what this young pitcher can provide, and for him to possibly be someone you look at spring training that we're keeping an eye on in terms of getting into the roster, getting into the rotation. Seems like the timeline is actually a little bit quicker possibly than we thought, but they still will move slow and be a bit more conservative not to rush him back come spring.
Oh, and guys, he's 6'7" too. Like,
he's massive.
So you notice the one thing in that video, and we've talked about this before with some of the other tall, downhill type throwers. I'm excited to get him on Baseball Savant, because I know the extension rate is going to be through the roof. Like, he's on top of you. You saw it. You saw how far down the mound he was when he released the baseball, right? The 6'7" frame is going to get you down the mound no matter what. But his extension, his release point, if you're throwing 96, 97, 98, 99, 100 miles an hour, and the pitcher basically feels like he's on top of you, and you cut that 60 feet 6 inches to 52, 53 feet, that blink of an eye becomes an even quicker blink of an eye when you're trying to make a decision on pitch selection.
I'm glad you mentioned his height, because I see in the chat people aren't really realizing just how tall he is.
He's a big boy.
Here's Andrew Painter, just if we need a refresher for all the excitement of his talent. So was one of the most dominant minor league prospects coming out of high school.
I can't believe we're talking prospects again.
I know, this is where we are, guys. We're down bad. Not talking playoffs, we're talking prospects. In 109 and 2/3 innings, he had struck out 167 with a 1.48 ERA, saw batters that produced a combined .507 OPS. He's got a 70 grade heater that has been dominant. And as a 19-year-old, he was one that was able to climb to AA Reading. Of course, then got hurt. And they then the rest we know. He's someone that has, as he mentioned, embraced this new chapter and has like an open mindset. It's a new elbow. I'm a new person now is what he was saying. So just looking to get back to being in a danger spot of how he's throwing pitches. So still so young, and somebody, as we're talking about, honestly, the very near future, what this rotation can look like. It's very exciting. It's very exciting what this tall youngster can provide for this already really good pitching staff.
Yeah,
in terms of starting pitching.
We'll keep an eye on and do some updates about when Hupon and Griff McGarry and the other guys out there and how they perform. Pon is a interesting one, had a really good year. But 20 innings is what we're going to get from Andrew Painter, and he is going to contribute to the club next year, I really believe. And now he's got the Henry Rowan Gardner elbow, so all the fears of injury are behind us, hopefully, as the big one's out of the way. Yeah, you hate to talk like that about kids' ligaments and arms, but it does feel like an inevitability with a lot of these kids and how hard they throw that eventually it's going to go. Just look at the Dodgers prospects, like every single one.
That's the reality.
Is blowing out. And the Phillies, have shown a really good track record so far of developing arms the right way and not burning guys out and blowing a ton of Tommy Johns. Some of that is, getting college arms that, but other than that, like they're not having a ton of minor leaguers blow out arms and have these big injuries early. So hopefully it's behind them now, and good times are ahead for Andrew Painter. I started the show just saying, like, I didn't expect to feel like a blip of life from my Phillies team anymore, Renee. But I saw Andrew Painter throw, and I was like, whoa, am I back? Have I gotten over this? No, I haven't gotten over it.
Right on cue, because this weekend was dreadful, and I was around First of all, I didn't know so many Mets fans existed, but they all came crawling out of their
New York
crevices.
is big, yeah.
Not just that, I saw people all over that were wearing Mets hats and, Renee, how about those Phillies? And I'm like, when the heck did you become a Mets fan? Everybody's a Mets fan now. So I feel like Andrew Painter, he didn't save us because obviously we'd much rather be talking about the NLCS right now, and that's an obvious point. But it did give us something from this weekend to look forward to of, as we talk about the window of this team and the potential, what the future is going to look like.
Yeah. And by the way, I was saying the Rough Riders, it's the Glendale Desert Dogs. Excuse me. I don't know. I guess I had Eve on the brain.
Desert Dogs, Rough Riders. Yeah. We're good with the alliteration, at least.
Yeah. So the way it works in the Arizona...
You big Frisco Rough Riders guy,
yeah,
I knew you were. Amarillo Sod Poodles.
So the way it works in the Arizona Fall League is there are 6 clubs, and the rosters get supplemented by 5 MLB teams throw players on one roster. So the Desert Dogs are constructed of Chicago White Sox. So they're going to be really bad.
No help there.
Oh, no. I don't want anybody around them.
Don't infect any of these Phillies prospects.
Don't be too close to their players.
The Cincinnati Reds, the Los Angeles Dodgers, hopefully the arm blowing out doesn't transfer either, and the St. Louis Cardinals. So the Phillies on the Glendale Desert Dogs, which we'll be paying attention to, is Tristan Garnett from the pitching staff. Tristan Garnett, Andrew Painter, Griff McGarry, Christian McGowan, Wesley Moore, and Wen Hupon. And I believe that is it from the pitching staff. And then catcher-wise, Jordan Disson is out there. And then infielders, let's see, we have Brian Rincon, Otto Kemp, and then outfielders on the Desert Dog, Gabriel Rincones Jr. And that is it. On the Glendale staff.
And by the way, guys, I know we joke, but the White Sox do have 5 top 100 prospects.
They better have some prospects.
I was going to say, as they should.
So the other teams in the league, you got the Mesa Solar Sox, the Salt River Rafters. That's a pretty cool name.
Wait, the Salt River Rafters?
Yeah.
That's quite a mouthful.
Yeah, it's the Arizona Fall League.
Salt River.
Salt River Rafters.
Like Salt Lake City, maybe? Where are they from?
Probably.
No, the place is called Salt River.
Oh, is it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they're all Arizona teams. It's all in
the Peoria Javelinas. Do you know what the Javelina is?
No.
They're big in Texas. They're like giant wild hogs. They hunt them. Apparently, it's pretty good.
Oh, they're animals.
Yeah.
Peories?
No, Peoria is in Arizona. The Javelina.
Oh my gosh, these words are like
the
Javelinas
are wild hogs, desert hogs.
Huh. I'm not going to ask.
It kind of looks like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The surprise Sagorios.
I don't know. I
I
know
don't
any
even
of these
know.
words.
And then the Scottsdale Scorpions is probably
Okay,
the
there's
most.
one.
That's the most famous one, probably because of their hat. But each team, each MLB team, 5 teams send to one roster. So we're all Glendale Desert Dog it up.
Go Desert Dogs.
Woo! Big Desert Dog
Yay.
guys.
This is where we are now. Is this really reality? It's October
It's quite bad.
14th, and we're talking about the Glendale Desert Dogs.
Well, let's talk about after some business, Renee, Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thompson tomorrow, because I wrote down my list of questions
Okay.
that I would ask Dave Dombrowski
that.
if I had him one-on-one. So let's take a brief moment to tell you about some of our friends, and then we'll continue with that conversation.
Yeah, starting with Ace Hardware Home Services, because Ace is the place if you've got a leaky pipe, air conditioning issue, plumbing issue, whatever is going on in your home. Ace Hardware Home Services has a knowledgeable staff that has decades of experience across them, and their professionals are going to help work with you from the first phone call or the first time you enter their doors all the way through until the project is complete. If you have a project coming up and you are looking to get some equipment, you're looking to get some materials, well, you actually can get some free estimates on any equipment installation and replacement with their trusted advisors and options that are best suited for you and for your home and your budget. They also have emergency services. Let's say as we're getting into the colder season, a pipe burst or you have a major catastrophe in your house. Well, they've got some emergency services that also can help when you need most. So services you can trust and satisfaction guaranteed over at Ace Hardware Home Services. They make it right no matter what, and they're locally helping in our communities, in our backyard, because they have a team dedicated to keeping you and your neighbors comfortable in your home. So with a wide range of residential maintenance, installation, home repair services around plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, you can visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on whatever that next project may be.
Linda in the chat says Andrew Painter is over 1.5 feet taller than me. That is pretty funny.
So you are about 5'2", 5'3".
Yeah. Well, Renee told you about taking care of your house. Maybe your house needs some new floors, and that's why you can lean on the people at Empire Today. You've been hearing them for decades. I feel like my entire life, Empire Today has been there on the screen when I'm watching baseball games or whatever. And you don't stand around for decades if you aren't quality, and people know it and talk about it. And right now you can go to empiretoday.com/PHLY to get $350 off new floors. If you're like me in 2024, you don't really feel like going to big box stores where you don't really get a hand. You don't really find people that know what they're talking about. Well, Empire Today prides themselves on the shop at home convenience. They come right to your door, and they have this gorgeous virtual floor designer, which will show you what new floors look like right there with your furniture in your house. Boom. And they're not going to beat you over the head with thousands of samples. They're going to bring to you, after listening to you, what you are looking for with the best products that they would put in their own homes. And they service their own warranties. So if something does arise, you're not going to have to track down some manufacturer and deal with that headache. Empire Today has got you covered. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive $350 off when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details. All right, tomorrow we will be on the Zoom call, I'm sure, listening to Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thompson speak. First observation, Rob Thompson is there as well, and he's safe. Obviously, they're not making any changes there.
That would be quite...
That would be weird.
Fiasco to...
Hey, here's Rob. We're actually we're gonna fire you, Rob.
We wanted to publicly let you know that, Rob. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Kick rocks.
We've called you all here to this press conference today to fire this man to my right, Rob Thompson. Somebody will escort you out.
Ladies and gentlemen, please gather your tomatoes and begin throwing them.
Let's be honest, though. We've seen some public
Charlie
spectacles.
walked out with the Wawa bag. Remember?
We've seen some public spectacles from Philly sports coaches and executives this weekend. So maybe the Phillies are looking to follow suit in their own way.
Don't get me started on
I know.
Nick.
I knew I was.
Yeah,
I was just stirring the pot right here.
Weird.
So bizarre.
The
but
weirdest
do we
win
expect
ever.
Anything less weird right now out of Philly sports?
Yeah.
Like everything right now is just like whatever
Sixers
can happen
news
will
dump
happen.
in the middle of an Eagles game about Embiid's health.
Casual.
Yeah.
Super casual.
So Rob Thompson is he's gonna be the manager of the Phillies next year. I highly doubt they announce any sort of extension. He is going to enter a lame duck year, I would assume, without an extension, and they take it from there. Simple as that, right? Like, don't overthink it if you have a year left. And, you know, it's nothing against Rob. Now, before we get to Dave, I find myself almost feeling sympathetic for Rob.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I don't think he's the problem. I think his players failed him. And I didn't think I would be here a week after, less than a week. What day did they get removed again?
Wednesday, but
Wednesday?
We're not talking.
Less than a week removed from the end of the season, in which the expectations were at an all-time high. I just kind of feel bad for him. Everything he did failed. And that's how I feel about Rob Thompson right now. I think most of his stuff, outside of like a Jeff Hoffman, which we discussed in 25 minutes and up and down and like some minor stuff, mostly everybody just came up small for him. Like they just failed at every turn. So I sit here and I go, man, Rob Thompson couldn't do anything right. And that wasn't his fault. So that's how I feel about Rob Thompson 5 days removed from an epic collapse.
Okay, well, I'm feeling a little bit like Elsa over here. There's just ice in my veins
right now.
Go
for it. Have at
very
it.
Cold-hearted.
Make us a new castle.
No sympathy for anybody.
I do. Maybe
not
I'm getting
a single
old
person.
and
Not
lame.
Dave. Not Rob. Not Bryce. Not anyone. Not Liam is the only person I might have sympathy for, and all the other babies across this team. I have no sympathy for anyone because everybody plays a part. Manager included. Rob is not excluded. Oh, that rhymes. And to be honest, although it's not his fault that they could not hit, it's not his fault the bullpen quite literally exploded. It is his team. And at the end of the day, this team that had a lot of talent did not get anywhere close to what the bar was. They underachieved. Whatever this smiling.
I just was an idiot friend of mine. Just
Whatever. This team had such high expectations, and then to fall so incredibly short in an embarrassing way to get eliminated by the Mets. I feel bad for no one. Everybody played a part. And you know what, Rob?
You're going to have everybody's support. I'll tell you that.
Well, my issue
More people feel like you than they do me.
Yeah, and I'm like,
totally
where is this coming from? Why are you fuzzy-wuzzy over here? Rob Thompson and his calm, cool demeanor is contagious, and it has completely flatlined. This team has no pulse.
I get
This team has no energy. They all look dead in the face, like the lights are off, and nobody's home. No lights are even on. And the fact that Rob Thompson just sits there chewing on whatever he's chewing on and just kind of watching. They do the same thing.
I thought he should have gotten ejected in that game on Bohm's hit. Like, I get you on the lifeless
like to see
thing.
I don't need to see, again, I don't need rah-rah coaches that are, like, there's some coaches that are just too over the top. And I'm not going to say any names because nobody deserves to catch a stray today. But for Rob, I need him to be a little bit more, like, dial it up. And to be honest, I said this before, it's kind of like, he's gentle parenting over here, and I need him to say no. I need him to put his foot down.
You need a boomer parent to come in and spank somebody. I need a little bit of boomer. I need every once in a while, I need him to cross out of that gentle parenting and give us a little bit boomer. And I need you to threaten and bring out a flip-flop, a switch, or whatever. Because if you were to do that, can you imagine the response that he'd get from this team? Everybody is so used to Rob saying nothing. So if at some point he randomly just flips the switch and goes from gentle parenting to John Tortorella, as K-Red says. Then I think everybody oh, shoot. I don't think that can work because, all right, we're going cross-sport analogies now. Yesterday, Nick Sirianni said
many cross-sport analogies.
That, the players have told me to be more of myself. So, like, Rob Thompson can't go fire and brimstone now because it would be so out of character.
That's part of the issue. And I don't need him to be that every day. I think he just needs to give us a little bit more. Like, can we get stern? Can we get a little more bass in your voice? Can we get a little bit, maybe some furrowed brows? I don't need him to be like...
He's Canadian. They're pretty gentle.
I know. And all the Canadians I know are that way. Yeah, but so nice. I don't care. You have a job to do. Your team is falling short, and you're not doing your part. So everybody's got to take a look in the mirror. And when you look at that man in the mirror, Rob, what could you have done differently? And I think it actually started before we even got to the playoffs because this team has been lackluster the entire second half of the season. What happened in the playoffs was no surprise. This was the team's identity for half of the season.
So I want to ask Tyler because me and Renee are at full of ice in the veins, and me, little cuck lib sympathy boy over here, feeling bad
I
for
have
Rob
no idea why
Thompson
you're feeling bad for Rob.
because I saw an
He got to
entire
the
roster.
postseason 3 seasons in a row.
I just saw an entire
Winningest
roster of
manager.
guys let him down. You know what I mean? Like, there was basically Nick Castellanos, Bryce Harper, and the starting pitching, and everybody else sucked. Tyler, where do you fall on the scale of
I think
lib sympathy boy over here and Elsa, the ice queen over here?
So I think
Somewhere in the middle?
That used to be my screen name, Ice Princess. Day Day. Ice Princess Day Day X3 at abe.com.
So where are you?
I think first of all, I think, Renee, you have to take out 2022. You can't quantify or qualify that as some sort of like.
Why not?
Because
he didn't coach the entire season?
They went to a World Series.
Wait, no, I'm including that because I think that's why I have zero sympathy for him.
That's what I'm saying. They went to a World Series. That doesn't like, and they were objectively the worst of the two teams in that series.
And he set the bar really high and then continued to lower that bar. Proceed.
So if you want to quantify the last 2 years as abject failures, you're 100% correct. They are. This year in particular, decisions that were made by Rob Thompson were not the right moves, but not because they were objectively poor decisions. It was because every time he went to a move, it backfired on him. You were using your high leverage relievers in spots that you were using those guys every single day for 162 games, and none of them pitched well. Jeff Hoffman pitched poorly. Matt Strom pitched poorly. Orion Kerkering pitched poorly. If you want to argue the conversation about left field and second base and Alec Bohm, I think there's validity to two of those three. Alec Bohm was your everyday third baseman, and it was just going to be that way.
Yeah.
Your left field, you were kind of stuck in left field because of the fact that you did not go out and acquire an everyday outfielder.
And that's a Dave Dombrowski issue.
You can sell me on Austin Hayes all you want. He's not an everyday outfielder. And neither is Brandon Marsh.
But do you really fault Rob for playing the splits there?
No,
with a lefty on the mound?
So in that regard, you're playing the matchups. And so to me, is he blameless? No, he's not. I think that using Jose Ruiz in a 2-0 game was a poor decision. I think that there were a couple of different opportunities for him to potentially make a move that he didn't, and it ended up not being the right play. I think Renee, you brought up bringing Jeff Hoffman back out for the second inning was probably a poor decision in that regard. But I think when you're talking about the decisions that he made, most of them were decisions that were their catalyst all year, and these were the decided things that they were going to do all year, whether it be your high leverage guys or your splits or whatnot. Sure. He's not blameless. No, this team faltered down the stretch and had the exact same reason as to why they faltered down the stretch for a second consecutive year. But I'm not in a scorched earth mentality where I'm sitting here blaming
so you're
everything
somewhere
on him.
in the middle of this.
There's justification to be angry, but I don't think it's build your ice castle and
it's a nice castle,
go out and sing "Let It Go."
I want to say, let me clarify. I'm not saying he failed.
But you don't feel
failed as a
sympathy
team.
like,
I feel no sympathy for him.
I do. I just feel like the guy couldn't do anything right because whoever he went to failed him. Outside of like 7 guys.
Here's the
6 guys.
Here's the other issue I have, and then I'll get off the soapbox for now. If this was a situation, we have a long time for me to stay on this soapbox. Here's my if the Phillies had played really well all season and got to the playoffs and flatlined, and we got caught off guard by all the mistakes of cold bats, bullpen issues, I then would have a little bit more sympathy for Rob. But the fact that we all saw the writing on the wall the last few months,
they were
dating
bad.
back to, honestly, June in the London series.
They were like a 500 team.
They never responded back from June 8th. They were literally 500 the remainder of the season. They were getting beat badly. We were seeing so many games of ups and downs. One game they'd have an explosive 10 runs scored. The next game they'd get shut out. We saw the bullpen have moments where, the bullpen was great, but then there were some stretches for Matt Strom and Jeff Hoffman where their ERA dipped. They started giving up more. Carlos Estevez definitely blew some saves. So we got little flashes and we got some glimpses of this team has some concerns. And we talked about that the entire season. So that also is why I do put a little bit more or less sympathy, I should say, on Rob and his staff, because you actually had months of time to try to fix some of these areas. Trade deadline, prime example. We talked about bringing in Elaine Thomas. We talked about who they could have added. We talked about adding some offensive, productive outfielders. That was not done. Now, is that all Rob's fault? No, but I have no sympathy, like I said, for anybody across the board.
That's on Dave Dombrowski.
No, that's what I said. It's not Rob. But I'm saying that as an example that this team, all the way through, from the executive in the front office to Rob and his staff to the players, everybody had time at some point to make a difference to change the path of this team. And if one thing, there's the only thing that we can't change, injuries. But there are so many other things that could have changed and may have benefited this team come postseason time, and nobody did their part. So for that, that's why I have zero sympathy for Rob, Dave, John, everybody, because nobody stepped up and did something that was a meaningful change to change the trajectory of the season. And then when they lost in their first round, NLDS, it's not a surprise.
All right,
so
well,
no sympathy.
We're gonna talk about Dave Dombrowski because
Mic
I
drop.
really do believe he's failed the team at 2 deadlines. And look, should
Definitely.
trade deadline moves? I mean, theoretically, they should help you push over the top because you're taking a half a season of data, you're seeing what your shortcomings are, and you're trying to address a need. Now, you can't always go out there and get Juan Sotos at trade deadlines and things like that, but I think, the kidney thing, there's no way to see coming. But
Right.
other than that, Austin Hayes was pretty much an abject failure. Carlos Estevez, solid but not great. I guess it's the small pond or big fish in a small pond versus small fish in a big pond here analogy. And maybe the high leverage situations in Anaheim were not the same as, big time situations in baseball. And we're going to talk about Dave Dombrowski because he's coming up next tomorrow to talk. And we're going to talk about that coming up next. But let me tell you about our friends over at Bet365. Find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. And I was on a heater yesterday. All my picks on the PHLY Bet Show went well. So hopefully everybody out there made some money. Keep your eyes peeled for the custom PHLY custom odds boosts. We're going to be doing all football season long, basketball, hockey, well, not so much baseball anymore, but there's plenty of LCS and World Series action for you to get in on. You can find out why it's never ordinary. Use the code PHLY365 at sign up. When you can get $200 in bonus bets by betting just $5. Use that promo code PHLY365. Deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and get $200 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. They have one of the best things going in sports gambling, and that's their early payout offers. Football, hockey, basketball, baseball, whatever the criteria is in each league, if you get to that in-game, you'll get cashed out right there on the spot. You don't even have to wait till the end of the game, regardless of how it finishes. You'll get cashed out. So they pioneered live in-game betting, and they're the best at it. And every day they power up odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. They do over 10,000 boosts every month. They boost specific markets, so keep your eyes peeled for the PHLY boost. So download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the moments, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and older and located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Well, after you place those bets, you want to be able to enjoy the game. And maybe you want to enjoy that game in person. If you are looking for those last-minute ticket deals, over at the Game Time app, you have the opportunity. Wrong G. There you go.
The whole thing's breaking down on me.
Over at the Game Time app, you have a chance to take advantage of the tremendous prices that they have. The Game Time app is a spot to go if you've got live events you're attending, concerts, comedy shows, theater shows, or if you want to get to a game. Baseball game, hockey game, basketball game, soccer game, whatever game you're looking to attend. With the Game Time app, they've got all the little details to make it a lot less stressful as you're buying those tickets. The Game Time app has their Game Time picks, which means they actually filter out all the overwhelming amounts of options for you to just show you the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching and give you the best value, the highest value of seats depending on a price range that you're looking for. And with the Game Time picks, I know I used it myself to buy some tickets this fall. It just simplifies the process. There are so many options for seats to look for, and you don't know where to sit. Well, the picks aspect makes it simpler, but then on top of that, you get a nice view of your seats, which makes it even more simple to figure out where you're going to be located. So you have a nice idea before you even show up at that stadium, at the arena, at that hall of where you're going to be sitting. So with the Game Time app today, take advantage of their curated deals that make it easier to find the best price on every seat, the super deals they have, their seat views that allow you to check out your seats before you buy, and the fact they've got lowest price guarantee, and also some protections, event cancellation protections, and some others as well. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY, which gets you $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. And again, create an account, use code PHLY for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today because it's always what time, guys? It's always game time.
All right. Ed Wright in the comment section is speaking to me here a little bit because we're going to talk about Dave Dombrowski now. Dave Dombrowski speaking to the media tomorrow. Like these things are, I don't know, all press conferences to me. Like you have to read in between the tea leaves and kind of like pick up vibes. It's, cliche factories. And a lot of times you can predict answers that are coming. I wrote down some of the questions I would ask. But Ed brings up the point about Austin Hayes. He says, I'm at work. The Hayes move is irritating even before the kidney thing. Yeah. And you're right. This is a guy you were targeting for a while because Dave Dombrowski did say when they obtained him, we've tried to get him in years past. He's 29. He's only had an OPS above 760 in one season. He strikes out a ton, and he didn't really seem to work counts. It's just maddening if that's the type of player you're looking for.
Yeah.
Extremely fair point. Extremely fair point. We talked about Lane Thomas. Now, we're viewing this with the benefit of hindsight being 2020.
Oh, and the fact that Lane Thomas hit a grand slam and then
that was a pretty big
RBI.
hit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was a pretty big hit.
Oh, actually stepped up when the stage is big.
I mean,
I'm done.
We talked about Randy Arozarena, who I still think, he kind of failed with the Mariners a little bit. But there was other moves out there. Lane Thomas is one we talked about that I wanted Lane Thomas last year at the deadline. And, when you look at Rodolfo Castro and Michael Lorenzen last year, and I mean, Rodolfo Castro, Matt Vierling has had a good run with the Tigers. And I know Cody Clemens and others came in that deal. But like Gregory Soto, you gave up a promising utility player in Matt Vierling for a Gregory Soto. Like your trades haven't been great yet. Yeah. So it's a fascinating offseason for Dave Dombrowski. Somebody in the chat earlier also said, and I agree with you, that Ranger Suarez is the team's best trade piece. A young lefty, all-star caliber pitcher. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But Dave Dombrowski is going to be at the forefront of all of this, Renee. And I think his honeymoon phase in Philadelphia is likely over because I think people now are, judging a full body of work and going, well, you helped get them close, but you couldn't get them over the hump.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it's very concerning when you look at the roster acquisitions that we've seen that Dave Dombrowski has been involved in because you're not really sure why he's targeting these guys for so long. Austin Hayes is a good example. I'm glad Ed Wright brought that up in the chat because I know not a funny story at all, triggering story. This past weekend, I was watching the game for the Guardians, the ALDS game, and as Lane Thomas hits that grand slam, I lost my mind. I was like, Lane Thomas, are you kidding me? I was pissed off, and they're like, wait a minute, aren't you a Phillies fan? Why are you so mad? I was like, because he could have been a Philly, and he's actually hitting the ball. He's actually giving you good at bats in the postseason. But for whatever reason, Dave Dombrowski, I don't know if he's looking for projects. And here's my concern that I think
he's looking for bargains.
So here's my concern. And when you look at the Castros and Hayes and these guys, these are guys you can get for less. Austin Hayes at one point last season was having an all-star season, was playing fantastic. But if you talk to any Orioles fan, they were happy to let him go at the trade deadline this year because this season,
we were happy to let Sir Anthony and Soto go.
He's had injuries. He hasn't given them anything offensively. He's actually been one of their worst outfielders, and that's who the Phillies went after. And then to hear Dave Dombrowski mention, we've been keeping an eye on him for years. We just haven't been able to make a deal happen. How were you not able to make that deal happen? And why were you watching him for so long? He hasn't been that good for you to be targeting. But what you're looking for are those guys that you hope hope you can build, hope you can get them for less. It's a bargain, and it's like you're thrifting. You want to get a bargain deal that is a guy you can try to teach some
I'll
things,
never forget
fine-tune some
what I
things.
said when I joined you guys from the golf course when the Austin Hayes trade happened.
Yeah.
I said it's probably a smart value trade, but not a sexy trade. And it turned out to be worse than that because, Gregory Soto and Sir Anthony that was your shot. That was a guy you targeted.
Right.
It just didn't work. So it's 2 trade deadlines in a row. He's speaking tomorrow. So I wrote down some of the questions that I would want to hear truthful answers to. Whether or not you get the truth is a whole different ball of wax. Number 1, how do you change a team's approach without changing a roster? Do you think he has an answer to that?
No. Well, it's baseball. Sometimes you can hit the ball. Sometimes you
The
can't.
point being,
That's what they always say. That's the line we always
baseball
hear.
guy cliche. The point being, this is a pretty veteran-heavy roster, and a lot of those veterans failed you. And I know JT spent a lot of time in the biomechanics swing lab last year working on minor things, and sure, you can always tweak it, but inherently in a baseball player is kind of like your discipline and your understanding of the strike zone. And we saw Bryson Stott take a major step back in that regard this year. We saw a lot of guys not be able to work counts. So I want to know, how do you change a team's approach that's kind of a baked pie at this point?
Yeah.
The guys are what they are. How do you change that without upheaval of the roster? I don't think you can.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see how he answers that because I don't think you can change the team's approach anymore without changing the roster. That's where I'm at.
Exactly. I mean, we've talked about it. The way this roster is constructed with the amount of 30-plus-year-olds that they have, these are guys who are not changing how their approach is at the plate. And on top of that, I think what we're also learning is it's not a fluke. Some of these guys are what they are. The Bryson Stotts, Braden Marsh, Alec Bohm, even as hard as this is to say, some of these even younger players are showing you their true colors. Of
Alec Bohm isn't a 4-hitter. I think he's miscast right now. I think if Alec Bohm's in
but
your
I think they're
sixth
showing
hole,
you this is what you can get from them, and there might be small areas for growth, but there's, to your point, it's time for a different personnel, and you can't continue to bang your head against the wall expecting different results if you're not changing who's at bat, and you're not changing the construction of this roster.
Tyler,
that's 2
can
years
you
in a
change
row.
it without changing a roster? Do you believe you can?
I think with your younger core, you probably can get away with it. I'm not sure with your elder statesmen, your veterans, it's going to be the case.
But do you really think Bryson Stott and Alec Bohm are going to change dramatically?
That's my
And I'm not
concern.
even pinpointing them because that's unfair because everybody failed and Schwarber outside 1 home run and JT and Trey. So it's unfair to pinpoint the young guys. But to your point,
collectively the whole roster failed. There's no doubt about it.
But do you really
think
think
they hit 188 as a group?
Do you really think Brandon Marsh or Johan Rojas can have the light bulb moment?
Yeah.
They've each shown you, splashes and moments, but do you really believe they can change? These are the hard conversations they have to have with each other this offseason.
And this is
The
why
answer is probably no to that question.
Yeah,
Right.
me too.
And this is why when you go back to the Austin Hayes conversation and the trade deadline moves, why aren't the Phillies and why aren't Dave Dombrowski, especially in the moves being made, why aren't you bringing in ready now players? Why are you bringing in so many projects? And I understand you have the veteran core that you're expecting or you have high expectations for. But if you're going to have an everyday outfielder, they need to be somebody that's ready now offensively just as well as they are defensively. Johan Rojas, great defensive piece. He's not an everyday outfielder. Braden Marsh is a great, vibes guy. You like what you get from him, but he's not a full season starter. There are too many players that you have no idea what you're going to get from them. So I think I'd want to also know, and again, I would never even ask this question because we'd never even get the response that we really need is, what is the plan to develop, to have, you don't need to develop, to have players that you're bringing in that are ready now to be everyday starters that can produce offensively?
Anthony Santander. My next question I have written down, does Bryce Harper need better protection in this lineup?
What is the plan for that? Because you can't continue having
I think it's clear that
two seasons in a row.
Alec Bohm and Nick Castellanos are not suitable protection for Bryce Harper in a lineup. Whether that means moving him up, moving him in the lineup, that could be an answer. Another answer could be, well, there's some free agents out there that we think can protect Bryce Harper. But I think it's fairly clear here. There's one guy anymore that can protect Bryce Harper in a lineup, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's most likely Kyle Schwarber. And then you're stacking lefties in the heart of your order, which, isn't ideal. But I really have no faith in anybody else on this roster properly protecting Bryce Harper and letting him see better pitches to murder.
Yeah.
So I don't think that guy's here. Maybe Anthony Santander can be it. He's had 3 good years in a row, his best in a contract year. You're probably not going to get Juan Soto. I hate to break that to everybody. We will talk about it because it is exciting. John Heyman over the weekend said, Phillies are a long shot.
Stop throwing the Phillies in there just to.
Well, they have money, so they're always going to be a partner. But he basically said, it's Yankees or Mets. He's not leaving New York. So I don't think that person's on the roster, and I'd love to hear Dave, address that. Who's going to protect Bryce Harper next year? Because to me, that is the number one issue of this offseason. Is getting that man protection.
That's back-to-back postseasons that opponents are able to game plan for Bryce, and the Phillies have no answer.
And then throw some slop to the 4 and 5 hitter.
Exactly. So, which leads perfectly into one of my questions, because this is back-to-back seasons where this team has gotten to the postseason and hit a wall. We talked about the World Series run was not a failure in any stretch of the imagination. The team was actually surging, playing their best baseball come right October. The last 2 seasons, as the season progressed, there's been a drop-off, especially look at this year. What are you looking to do in terms of adjustments to make this team built for the full, not just 162 games, but for a deep run in the playoffs? Because you can't get to the postseason and you have the offense is hitting a wall. The bullpen is struggling, whether it's rust or whatever you want to call it. What is the plan to make sure this team is ready for a deep run? Because there are some teams, and you look at even this year, a team like the Mets, I even thought the Padres were. They just ran up against a good Dodgers team, obviously. There are teams, the Guardians, that are built for the playoffs. The Phillies are not built for the playoffs. Whether it's the mental toughness and that overall energy we talk about, or the other side in terms of just talent and depth, you need to have a plan. And I don't think that they're built for that. I think it's too much on, just you're relying on the guys are calling up from, AAA, from Lehigh Valley to give you sparks where needed. Who are you going to add to make this team? Some of these starters, in my opinion, are bench pieces.
Oh, I would
like a Johan Rojas, Brandon Marsh.
I wouldn't blow it up, but I would try to trade a lot of my pieces.
Imagine
Brandon Marsh is a tradable piece.
Correct, and I'm not saying it has to be these
Johan
guys
Rojas,
specifically.
I personally would give up on. He might have some value out there. I don't think they're going to do a lot of these because the way I'm feeling about this roster right now is closer. Not blowing it up because that's not going to happen, but tweaking around every edge. And that means, a lot because people in the chat, Santander, he strikes out a lot. Ed Wright says, Elephant in the Room says, I like his bat, but I'm not sure he's much of an outfielder. Oh, no, he's quite terrible in the field. But what he does is hit bombs. He does strike out a lot.
Yeah.
To me, that's the pressing offensive thing this offseason is, who's a left fielder for you that can give Bryce Harper protection? And when you look at the free agent list, it's not bountiful, my friends.
No.
So you might have to get creative with trades. And that's another question I had written down. How active do you think you'll be in the trade market? Because when you look at a Rojas, a Marsh, hell, we even talked about Bohm with 2 years of arbitration control left. Everybody not named kind of in Zalecki's little blurb last week. Are they on the table? Are you going to be working the phones? Are you going to be more active in the trade market than you are in free agency? I guess is a better way to say that. It's going to be really interesting because I think he's going, because of some of the contracts and how locked in you are with this veteran core, I think you have to be more active in trades than you do in free agency.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And honestly, I think they have the trade pieces there. And as you mentioned with who's a free agent, you're very limited there. So in terms of the guys that have raised their stock that are showing, I know Trey Turner's been brought up often. You mentioned Ranger Suarez, Alec Bohm.
Ranger's an interesting one. Yeah.
Bryson Stott, Brandon Marsh, Johan Rojas. There are guys and even prospects or, some minor leaguers that you don't want to cut the cord. There might be somebody that you're a really big fan of that's not coming back to this team next year, and they might have to be used in a trade. You have pieces that if I'm another team, especially a team that's building or on the outside looking in, trying to become a playoff team, the Phillies have pieces that are valuable elsewhere. So I do feel like the trade market is going to be where the Phillies can make the biggest splash. They have, in my opinion, you're not desperate, obviously, but you are
No, they're
probably
desperate.
a bit more aggressive.
They're desperate. They're absolutely
You
desperate.
definitely need to be more aggressive in the trade conversations because you're going to lose some money somewhere. There are some guys, like I know Taijuan Walker was brought up. There are some guys that you're going to lose money on, and that's the reality of it. You've got to be okay with letting some money walk out the door with them if it means you're going to be able to upgrade in some areas.
Lisa says, who has trade value, though? Matt Gelb from The Athletic, did tweet the other day or last week. Brandon Marsh does have value in this league.
Definitely.
Alec Bohm definitely has value in this league.
You think somebody would want Trey Turner, given his contract?
Not likely. Maybe, but not likely.
Even
Rangers, it's probably going to be cheaper pieces, and the roster change would happen kind of for the sake of change. Like, Bryson Stott has value in this league. I don't think they're trading Bryson Stott because I believe he can recapture what he did last year. But Alec Bohm, and that's my next question written down, is what is the organization's feelings on Alec Bohm's emotions? Because, great season from Alec Bohm for the most part. Was probably your most consistent hitter, start to finish.
Yeah.
Drove in a lot of runs. Turned into a nice doubles hitter this year. And then he mysteriously got benched in game 2 of an NLDS because apparently they didn't like the physical emotions he was showing from game 1 frustrations. And we saw it a couple times this year. I was at a game in good seats where he spiked the helmet after getting out of first base. It seems like something's there. Do they feel as though Alec Bohm is the man for the job the next 2 years while they still have this arbitration control over him?
Well, we know that
you're not going to get a truthful answer to that, but I would love to hear it.
We know that also this is a camp that doesn't want you to show emotion. So Alec Bohm is very much in the minority on reacting to things. But in all seriousness.
But I like it because it is a competitive fire.
It's something. It's not great. And I think you can, in my opinion, if I'm managing this team, I'm trying to bottle that up and utilize that passion in a more positive way versus him spiking his helmet or spiking his bat. But on the other side of that, it is concerning. He has had such a great season up until he hit a wall in September. And to finish this season, he still had overall finished with a career high and with his 44 doubles, his 779 OPS, his 280 batting average. But as we know, come playoff time, he was benched, didn't start game 2, and gave you absolutely nothing. So as he said, he was like, I know where I'll be next year. I don't know if he's saying as in like, you're going to be in Philly, you're not going to be in Philly.
We'll see.
But there are also, as we're talking through this, in terms of free agents for the Phillies, they do have Jeff Hoffman, Carlos Estevez, as well as Spencer Turnbull that are all free agents after this season. And then
Cousin Jeff made himself some money this year.
He definitely did. And then other guys like an Andrew Bellotti, Nick Nelson, and Dylan Covey all elected for free agency.
If they pick up Austin Hayes'
But and that's the other thing. There's there are options there.
Just walk away. Just walk away. Just walk away.
If you don't have the answers,
I don't know that song.
I know you don't. I think it's Kelly Clarkson.
Oh, yeah,
this is like early Kelly too.
Oh,
I think
no.
You don't know that song?
I don't think I've ever willingly listened to a Kelly Clarkson song in my life.
You're missing out.
You're right. It was a great song.
Missing out.
Am I missing out? You a Kelly Clarkson guy?
I like Kelly Clarkson's music.
Yeah.
I think she's
especially
good.
early Kelly Clarkson. But yeah, it's literally like the lyrics weirdly fit. That's why it's kind of stuck in my head. If you don't have the answer, why are you still sitting here? Just walk away.
Yeah,
just go.
Please,
Phillies,
Austin Hayes,
send
just
him out
walk
of here.
away.
Just go.
Next question I have is, how does the team view the 5th starter heading into camp next year?
Oh, yeah.
Andrew Painter is going to be here, but not in a starting pitching role next year. Taijuan Walker is going to be in camp. I really don't imagine they fully walk away from him just yet. They'll probably give him an offseason and a training camp to see if he can find something with his splitter again. But I would love a truthful answer to how do they view the 5th starter next year? Is there somebody within? Is there somebody from the outside? Is there somebody you're bringing in a trade? Like, Taijuan Walker, people are not going to be happy to see on the Phillies next year.
No.
And they know that.
Nope.
Do you just pay the man and DFA him and say thank you for your 2 years, or
they have some baggage that they have to cut?
He's going to be in
he's
camp.
one of them. He's one of those guys. I mean, this team, unfortunately, with all the contracts that they've given out, and I know John Peace was saying you were joking about Trey, but Trey Turner's a really good example. He was one of the worst defensive shortstops across Major League Baseball again this year with the amount of errors that he had. It's not even just his struggles offensively. Yeah, he'll be an outfielder eventually, but you
Probably
have him for
2 years.
What is it, 7 more years that he's got left on this?
9?
No, 9 years left of his 11-year contract.
It was an 11-year,
so, like, I'd love to know there's been some large contracts, and thank goodness some of them, I know Bryce is saying he's still in the prime of his career. He still has a decade left and yada, yada, yada. Okay, if Trey Turner eventually is going to be a left fielder, you're going to possibly move him to the outfield. And right now he's not giving you good play at shortstop with the amount of errors he has. His at-bats are rough. So having him as an outfielder could possibly even just take some off of the physical aspect of his game. But you were paying this man for an 11-year contract for $300 million. That's not a left fielder contract. So when you have some of these guys that have struggled right now, again, wouldn't ask this question, but would love to know the answer. How do you plan to best utilize and maximize guys you're locked in for 7, 8, 9 more years that have struggled the last 2 seasons? Trey Turner is one of them. He has struggled last season up until August. He struggled this season, was great in the beginning of the year. Of course, the injury had him sidelined for 6 weeks with the hamstring, came back, was fantastic in those initial games back, and then was doo-doo at stretches of the season, including the playoffs. So, for him, you have him for 9 more years. He's one of a few guys that you look at with massive contracts. What is the plan to best maximize so you don't feel like you're shortchanging the amount of money you spent and also getting the production that you need for why you signed these guys to a big contract in the first place? Is it just to start getting him some slow reps at left field? Is it just to continue to keep him at shortstop every day for this season and hope he's better? What is the plan here? Because someone like Trey, this is 2 years now, and another one, I think he's showing us who he is. This is not a fluke. This is Trey Turner.
Yep, but he's here for a long time, and you're not going to do anything about it. That's the reality. He'll eventually be an outfielder. It is what it is. And then the final question is how it's kind of similar to the earlier one, but what is the actual plan they're going to put in place this offseason to correct? Because we're about to get into the Jason Stark note from the Mets last night. How do you improve your guys' approach? What actually is going to be done? I know there's the biomechanics lab. I know there's R&D. I know they'll be looking at tape and film and yada, yada, yada. But what, each player is probably going to have an offseason packet of here's what we think you should work on. How do you go about changing that? I'd love to hear the answer.
My last one is definitely around the bullpen because obviously as I just mentioned, Jeff Hoffman, Carlos Estevez are free agents.
I would think
Spencer Turnbull's not one that, Spencer Turnbull's not one that, given his injury history, you're not counting him out to come back anyways. But to lose Jeff Hoffman and already a bullpen that got exposed this postseason with their 11 ERA and the 16 runs they gave up in 12 and 2/3 innings, this bullpen obviously needs to be bolstered. We talked about it at the trade deadline. We've talked about it many times this season. So what are you looking to do to be aggressively acquiring some high leverage bullpen arms that you can add to this depleted bullpen right now?
Yeah, I think it starts with Hoffman. I would imagine they want to bring him back. He's going to make some money, and then you kind of take it from there. We'll see what happens. It's another good question for this team. All right, let's talk about the Dodgers.
Do we?
This is a stat courtesy of Jason Stark. Cody Senga did not have location last night.
Kodai Senga struggled big time.
And when a pitcher, this is crazy.
Do you do this intentionally?
I know,
is this just a shtick for you?
Kodai Senga. No, I'm not a pronunciation nerd. I don't get Kodai. Who cares?
Call him Cody.
Cody. He's Cody Senga now going forward. He did not have his stuff. So what do the Dodgers do? They don't swing at crap.
I know.
What a novel idea. I don't know if you know this about baseball or not, guys, but you don't have to swing at balls that you can't really hit and put a good bat on.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it. The Dodgers threw 5 innings last night, saw 85 pitches. They swung at a total of 6 outside of the strike zone. Jason posed the rhetorical question, how many innings worth of chases by the Phillies against the Mets is that? I would go far as to say it's not even an inning.
A third of an inning?
You could get that done in 2 batters if you're the Phillies.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what the Dodgers did. They said, throw me strikes. We're not going to hit that crap you're offering up. And when it comes in my wheelhouse, I'm going to make you pay for it. The Mets magic is going to run out. I do believe that.
I literally wrote, the Dodgers offense is not the Phillies offense. The Mets stupidly thought because Kodai Senga pitched so well in his NLDS start against the Phillies, they were going to roll him out.
It's Cody. He's our friend Cody now. The Ghost Fork Cody.
They were like, we're going to roll him out. It's just his third start of the season. That's okay. Go
Ballsy
start
move by
game
them.
1 of the NLCS against the Dodgers. And for him to have, as you mentioned, the 4 walks, wild pitch that he threw, a pitch clock violation, 2 hits, 4 outs, gave up 3 runs, and then that nicely, hey, here's the other novel idea, Jamie. Not only do you not swing and chase pitches that are outside the strike zone, because with his 13 of his first 16 pitches outside the strike zone, the Dodgers were poised and patient. Also, they continued to then rally more runs. So after putting up 3 runs against Senga, they continued to put up more runs. Then they continued to get a shutout, and they continued on to what's their the fourth largest shutout win in postseason history. They're making all this history now because this is the longest stretch that a team has held opponents scoreless in the postseason since the 1966 Orioles.
They have to get 1 inning for the record.
The Orioles, right. The Orioles did it against the Dodgers then, and that 33 innings that they've had scoreless, Jack Flaherty, Daniel Hudson, it's starting pitching. Oh, and it's their bullpen.
Let's say goodbye to our Roku and Samsung viewers. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We appreciate all of you as we tie a bow on this conversation. Yeah, how about that? The Dodgers are good.
Novel idea.
So the games today, and Tyler and I were talking about this before the show, kind of like ass backwards. The Mets and Dodgers are playing at 4:08, which is 1:08 local time.
Mm-hmm.
The Guardians and Yankees are playing at 7:38. Why would you not put the Dodgers at like the Yankees at like 6:37, so you get the prime time on the East Coast, and then just make the Dodgers the late game. I know you lose some East Coast viewership. Maybe the numbers will back up that the daytime is better, but then you get prime time out west.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think a day game today is look, I love day sports because I have the freedom to like watch it. But like, do we really need a Monday afternoon CS game? Like both, and plus like, again, not an excuse. The shadows we saw in the DS games are just like unnecessary. Like, do you really need to throw that wrinkle at guys when it's the most important time of the year? So now the Dodgers and Mets are going to have, I would imagine some shadows on the field at some points here. It just feels unnecessary.
It's just 2 games. There's no reason to. This should be the easiest to schedule.
What are we doing?
I think this is getting a little bit overcomplicated.
It's just weird.
It is odd that, and then tomorrow it's the same time for the Yankees Guardians at 7:38. So they've got like that 7:38 slot for both games.
I understand New York prime time, but
sure, but you
LA's
could
pretty
easily
big too.
take advantage of the West Coast time zone and have that game be later.
Yeah, and I could watch it.
I'm actually not a fan of the later games because it's late after bedtime. But yeah, you can definitely have gone like 6 and 8:30. Even like a 5:30 and 8 if you really want to push. But a
6:08, 9:08
start and a 1:08 start on a Monday. It is also Columbus Day.
Indigenous People
Day. So there are people that are not
Columbus
working today. But I still think
weird.
It's too much.
Yeah, I think they're overthinking it.
Yeah.
So
I also don't love the fact, I'm so sorry, but this is a super minor thing. I don't love you're going to have 2 NLCS games before the ALCS plays 1. And I kind of would think it makes sense to just flip-flop them for that reason alone of like stagger every other.
My OCD hears you on that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just weird to me that this pattern doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So you got Manaea versus Brazier today. I had to take my time with that, make sure I got it, guys.
Good job.
I don't want to disappoint you. And then in the later game, we got Cobb versus Rodon, excuse me. Throw an extra N in there. My God.
I think you're one of those guys that just makes up whatever letters.
I'm terrible with all names.
You just make up whatever letters. Like, where did you get
now you're always going to be thinking about it, not because you want to get it right, because you just want to be like, bleep you,
This has been my
you're
career in
cool,
broadcasting. I will know the name and then just say diarrhea.
Yeah, I think you just pick some letters and go with whatever you want to go with.
How are we feeling? I think the Dodgers are going to take it. I think the Guardians got a really good shot here.
Okay. Here's all that I need to happen.
But the Yankees are the better team.
I don't want to see. I'm rooting for the Guardians.
Me too.
I don't want to see like the Yankees were like, oh, we haven't had a pennant in 14 years and yada, yada, yada. Don't care. The Dodgers have obviously had their stumbles where they haven't gotten to the NLCS. Don't care. They're also on this historic run right now with all these with the shutouts and scoreless innings. Still don't care. And I definitely don't want to hear about the Mets because if the Mets get to the World Series, baseball world will blow up because apparently everyone's a Mets fan. It's on the Guardians. No pressure. No pressure at all. I think they've got the talent to do it. I think they have these guys that are people kind of sleep on a little bit. Like you look across their roster, we've seen like a Stephen Kwan right now has been great for them.
Yeah, he's been playing
we've
awesome.
talked about Lane Thomas. You know, they've been off to a really consistent playoff, even though they had a bit of a hurdle and hiccup, I should say, against the Tigers. So I'm going to go Dodgers win today because I need the Mets to get swept. I need them out enough. And then I need the Guardians to go ahead and beat the Yankees because I could not stand. Can you imagine a Yankees World Series?
Puke. I think
all the baseball,
Rob Manfred is clearly pulling for Los Angeles Dodgers versus New York Yankees. Tyler, who do you think takes the series?
So I think that I've talked how much I love Cleveland's bullpen for a long time now.
What's their name again? The Fearsome Four?
Something like that, yeah. But they've been tasked to do a lot over the first two series, or the first series, excuse me. And I don't know over the course of a 7-game series if this plug and play type thing that the Guardians starting rotation has going on, where it's like Matthew Boyd for 4 and Alex Cobb gets the start. The only guy that like gives them depth is Tanner Bybee. And I don't know if that.
I'm kidding. You guys.
I didn't say anything.
I don't know if that holds up over a 7-game series. I think the Yankees win in the American League. I will take the Dodgers in the National League as well. In terms of my rooting interest, it's Cleveland by 1 billion. And then I was having this conversation the other day, and my wife was stunned when I said this. My second choice is the Yankees of the 4 teams that are left. It's Cleveland, the Yankees, the Dodgers, a chasm, the Mets.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from on that.
Like,
and it's because the Yankees already have, 27? Well, it's like, what's 28?
I don't want to see
I don't, like, the Yankees teams that we grew up on, the Jeters, the Posadas, the Clemens, Mussina, Mariano teams, like, they were so darn good that everybody hated them by nature. I don't hate this Yankees team. I don't have vitriol for this Yankees team. I think that they would be my
Aaron Judge and Juan Soto are very likable superstars.
They're both, just darn good ball players. I think they would be 2. I think I would go Guardians, Yankees, Dodgers, Mets.
I have to agree with you. And the other reason I don't want it to be the Dodgers, I definitely obviously don't want the Mets because, good Lord, they beat the Phillies and they beat the Dodgers and they beat the Yankees or Guardians of the World Series. Again, baseball world would explode. But the other thing about the Dodgers we have to keep in mind, the reality is Clayton Kershaw, Tyler Glasnow, Gavin Stone, Shohei Ohtani's not. Excuse me, Shohei Ohtani's not pitching. Like, there's so many injuries that they have. So if this Dodgers team wins this year, everyone's gonna be like, oh, they're gonna win back to back. They're the best team in baseball. It's a dynasty. Like, all the irrational crazies are gonna come out of just the obsession with the Dodgers.
Yeah,
they need to lose, but they definitely need to beat the Mets because I'm tired of them. And I do feel like the bullpen for the Guardians. I know it was mentioned in chat with having Emmanuel Clase, the best closer in the game. The bullpen is heavily going to be leaned on. So counting on them, just counting on the ALCS should be our World Series.
So our schedule going forward, since it is the off season, you can just pencil us in for 11 a.m. every day. We'll be here talking baseball, talking the off season, talking nonsense and mispronouncing names along the way. Hopefully we'll bring some levity to a long off season ahead. But thank you to everybody for hanging out with us today. We'll be back tomorrow. Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thompson talking. We'll be interested there. And then we'll have to start officially our off-season grades portion, which is always bittersweet because it means there's no more baseball.
Well, knowing the conversation that we had today, Renee is going to be like, F
you.
Everyone's
You're cool.
Fs.
We're out.
Zach Wheeler, you get an A.
Yeah, I got a lot of Fs to roll out.
Professor Washington's flunking everybody. All right, we'll see you all tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.